Hello and welcome. Come along with me as I go used book shopping, little free library scavenger hunting, and new book shopping. The first place that I decided to visit is my local library's used bookstore. And by bookstore, I basically mean the basement underneath of the library is full of used books that you can purchase at really affordable prices. I was tempted by this Charles Dickens biography. I loved the neutral colored dust jacket. I also really loved this Jane Austen omnibus of all seven of her novels, really because the cover was so beautiful, but I just can't imagine being able to actually read the books out of it. I did find this Elizabeth Gaskell Wives and Daughters paperback. I found this Edith Wharton, The House of Mirth. I think I've read this, but it's been a long time and I don't have my own copy on this shelf. I also found Lady Chatterley's Lover, which I've seen the movie but have not read the book. And there is Daniel Defoe, Moll Flanders, also one that I might have read, but definitely don't have the copy on my shelf. I love these mass market paperback novels, Bantams. I just love them so much. Here's this unique Dombey and Son. I actually already have a copy of that book on my shelf. I do not have Thackeray's Vanity Fair, but this was one of those weird hardcovers where it had plastic over it, so I didn't get it. Here is Miss Pettigrew's Last Stand by Helen Simonson. If you have not read this, I would recommend it. I don't think it's a book that needs to be on your shelf, but it is an interesting read, so if you can find it in your library, check it out. I also found this beautiful Dorothy Sayers Clouds of Witness, Lord Peter Wimsey paperback. So beautiful. That's one of those books that I kind of regret. I also found this Carlos Ruiz Zafran Shadow of the Wind paperback. I've read it. It's a good book. I would recommend picking it up. Look at this beautiful Ursula K. Le Guin Farthest Shore paperback. I already have this in an omnibus, but again, so tempted to get that copy as well. I did not know that Rudyard Kipling wrote tales of horror and fantasy. Does everyone else know that? Am I the only one? And then here are these Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson books. They are enormous. I have not read that series and I don't know if I would start it. Here are the Robin Jones Gunn, Christy Miller collections. I think I read a few of those in my youth, but those copies are lovely. If you haven't read any of Sharon Draper's books, I recommend the Out of My Mind series, but also Stella by Starlight is fantastic as a middle grade novel, one of the best I've read. And then I found the Sarah Addison Allen section. So you can see there's Sugar Queen, First Frost, The Girl Who Chased the Moon, all of those books of hers. The Bear and the Nightingale is also there by Catherine Arden, which is a phenomenal fantasy book. Also has The Lost Lake, which I have not read of hers. I really enjoy her magical realism. I think they're pretty gentle books. So I got two of the Sarah Addison Allen. So the first one I got is The Girl Who Chased the Moon. And in this we follow Emily. Emily is moving back into her mother's hometown. She's moving into her grandfather's. It feels like one of those old sort of Victorian looking houses that are just on Main Street, America. And when she gets there, her grandfather says to her, "Let me know what is on the wallpaper." And so it just is very indicative of Sarah Addison Allen's magical realism, which is one of the reasons why I love her books. I also do like that sort of small town homey feel that she seems to be able to replicate in most of her books, even though the plot changes. We also meet Julia. Julia is a neighbor, maybe, I don't think across the street. I think she's on the same street, just one house over. And she is a baker. I think she has some unrequited love situation in her life. But I do think the two of them become friends. I do think I will probably save this to read in the summer. But one of the reasons why I got these is because they match my current set of Sarah Addison Allen books. I also got The Peach Keeper. And in this we have Willa Jackson. She is running a outdoor equipment, like hiking clothes and items like that, shop in her little town. She says she's not super passionate about it, but she does like running the shop. She's got someone who is helping her, who's her employee. But in the beginning, we find out there was this weird weather situation, and invitations have gone missing, and they've gotten all mixed up. Well, Willa got her invitation, and this is to go and to visit a manor that has been turned into a spa. I think there's like construction. Well, it turns out this manor house that's like way up on the hill was actually in Willa's family, but it was bought by Paxton's family, who is another young woman in the town. And so it seems like there's some history in there of Willa's family having been well-to-do but having fallen on hard times, and the Osgoods came and bought it, and now she's trying to turn it into a business. But there is a peach tree that is on the property, and I think through the construction process, move it, and through moving it, they discover a skeleton. And so then there's a mystery, and the two families are kind of intertwined. I don't know much more than that. I did not get the Lost Lake, which is another one. It might be the only one I have left to complete my collection of her books, simply for the reason that it did not match the same size as the other books. So as a collector, those kinds of things kind of would irk me. So I will find the Lost Lake someday and add it to my collection of Sarah Addison Allen books. I've read Susan Wittig Albert's Beatrix Potter murder mystery series and loved it. I have not read these, but I am not opposed to reading more of her books. Here is Gregory Maguire. He's the author who wrote Wicked, and apparently he does a lot of retellings. I've read Hidden Sea, which is the Drosselmeyer origin story, but I've not read the Alice in Wonderland origin story, and I was very tempted. Here is this beautiful first edition of The Thornbirds by Colleen McCullough. This is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, family saga books set in Australia. I love it so much. That edition is beautiful. I have not read more of her works, and I am not opposed to it, so I may look for The Touch or something else by her in the library to see how much I like it. Did you know that J.D. Robb is Nora Roberts? I did not know that until recently, but I do see a lot of the J.D. Robb books. I was really intrigued by this cover. I did not choose to get it, but it really was a beautiful cover for a very chunky book, but lovely. Here is Wicked. So I guess the Gregory Maguire books are just shelved differently with paperback versus hardback. And I understand that he's coming out with an Elphie story about Elphaba's childhood. So that is interesting. Also, if you like the movie, the book is really odd. And there's a paperback of Thornbirds. So now I have moved on to a double-decker Barnes & Noble, one of our favorites. I found these beautiful cloth editions of classics. This Jane Eyre with the stenciled edges is just so tempting, as is the Wuthering Heights. I just love the sparseness of the cover. I love the linen feel of it as well. Here is this bright, sunshiny yellow Emma, which, again, it's not my favorite Austen, but the copy just really is tempting. And here's another gorgeous Wuthering Heights copy. I almost like that one better with the gold edges. I'm happy to see Edith Wharton also amongst all of these wonderful classic editions. I found the Brandon Sanderson Stormlight Archive series table as his, I believe, 5th book came out, Wind and Truth. They are all chunkers. I have read a few Brandon Sandersons. I have not yet attempted the Stormlight Archive. Maybe someday I will. I want to read more of T. Kingfisher, and seeing this Thornhedge book in this beautiful paperback edition definitely tempted me. Here is the Romantasy table. This Blood Over Brighthaven was tempting because it had a 50% off sticker on it, and none of the other ones did. The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. I don't think that really is romantasy. Immortal by Sue Lynn Tan. I had an opportunity to listen to that before it was published, and I didn't take it. I don't know if I'll read it. I do definitely want to read The Will of the Many. I've checked it out of the library, but was not able to get to it. And I also am in line for an audiobook of Alexis Henderson's An Academy of Liars. That has been on a few booktubers' favorite lists, and I would listen to it. I said recently that I would love to read a Boudica biography, and I don't know if that's the one to read. If anybody has any suggestions. I love Adrienne Young. A Sea of Unspoken Things is her newest book, and one that I am hoping to get to. I have an arc of Sarah Penner's newest book that's coming out, and I've not yet read The Last Apothecary, but again, with the sprayed edges, I'm so tempted. It seems to be the theme of this whole video is that I'm tempted. I might read more Murakami. Some of his books kind of intimidate me or even frighten me. I did get an arc of Marie Benedict's Queens of Crime novel. And I actually was surprised to see this out before its actual publication date. That's always a fun surprise. The Unmaking of June Farrell was my favorite book a couple years ago, the year that it came out. It's phenomenal. If you haven't read it, pick it up. I am hoping to read The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. This is her second book, but I think her writing style is right down my alley. From Barnes & Noble, I got 2 new books. I got Spy Family 13. I have talked about this series. This is a manga series. In this, we follow Twilight. Twilight is a spy, competent spy, and he got a mission at the beginning of this series that he needed to marry and have a child. And that was going to be his kind of cover, is that he's a dad who's married. They're trying to infiltrate, at least in the beginning, this boarding school or children's academy. And so that was how he was going to be able to get an in with that. Well, the wife that he chooses is actually an assassin. Again, a really good assassin. And the child that he chooses is Anya. And Anya has telepathic powers. And so she, as she joins this family, realizes that her dad's a spy, because he's not divulging this to anyone. And she realizes that her new adopted mother is an assassin, even though she's not divulging that. They start to realize that, they have like different powers. There also actually is a card game, and we have the card game. So my oldest really likes this manga series. We're careful about the manga series because sometimes there can be inappropriate content. And I mean, the mother is an assassin, so there's obviously violence in that, but there's not a lot of like mature content in this series, and so it's one that we enjoy. And we just found that the 13th one is out and on the shelves at Barnes & Noble, and so I picked that up. And I have picked this up in Barnes & Noble. I've had it recommended to me and ended up not getting it anytime that it's been recommended, or again, that I've picked it up in the store. But our Barnes & Noble was having a sale last month where they had stickers for 50% off on their hardcovers in store, and I was not able to make it to the sale. I literally saw this. This was the only one in the store that still had the sticker on. The other ones did not. And so I went ahead and picked this up. I'll be honest, part of the reason why I didn't want to grab this particular copy is because the sprayed edges to me are just lackluster and just not good quality. But I figure this way I can just read this copy and not have to go and get it from the library and save the sprayed edges. Since I'm not really attached to the sprayed edges and there's no stenciling, it's not a problem to read it. This is by the author who wrote Sword of Kaigen to much acclaim. This gets really good reviews. Elliot Brooks, who I follow in here, just did a video about how this might be her new favorite standalone fantasy book. I am hopeful that it's more fantasy and not so much romantasy, but I guess we will see. So I think there's a lot of discussion in here about classism and about the stereotypes and assumptions that people make based on what class someone is in. And so you'll be seeing this on my TBR videos at some point in the future, because I do hope to get to this soon. Next, I moved to a little free library and promptly found A Boy Called Bat. This is one of our favorite, if not our favorite, middle grade series. If you have not read A Boy Called Bat, I implore you to get that out of the library and read it. The next book in the series is actually coming out this month, and we have pre-ordered it. The Ballad of Lucy Whipple is a really great middle grade historical fiction. Here is White Lotus. I've seen advertisements for the TV show and haven't watched it, but that, again, I'm just a sucker for those old mass market paperback books. There's a Susan Meissner. The Dark Hills That Divide is one of my kids' favorite series. So again, pick that up from the library and try it out. So I did grab this Susan Meissner Lady in Waiting. I have read one of her historical fictions that I can't recall the name of, but it had the woman with the green dress on the cover. Anyway, in this we've got a dual timeline. We follow two Janes. So we follow a modern day Jane Lindsay, whose husband packs up and is leaving their marriage, and she discovers a ring. Readers discover that that ring actually has a connection to Lady Jane Grey, who, of course, is during the Henry VIII time frame, basically. And so we're kind of going back and forth between present day and the 16th century to kind of follow the journey of this ring. The main reason why I got this is not necessarily for the plot so much as I know that I like Susan Meissner's writing and her historical fiction specifically. So we'll see when I can get to this. I will add it into my historical fiction basket and just grab it when the mood strikes. I found two books that were sort of impulse grabs. And again, this is why I love Little Free Libraries. If I saw these to purchase, I don't know if I would. I do hear good things about Becky Chambers. This one's called The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, but I haven't heard anything specifically about this book. So in this, we follow Rosemary Harper. She ends up on an intergalactic ship that has a reptilian pilot, and she's just kind of working on the ship, and they get this job offer to travel through a wormhole to a planet that's really far away. And supposedly there's adventure and mishaps. I mean, I'm sure there's just hijinks abound. But I do think that this is a example of how found family can work. I think she's really kind of developing relationships with everyone, and I think probably part of the difficulties that they have is the fact that they're like a crew on a ship where they're not able to ever get away from each other. So it's obviously a sci-fi novel, and I have not ever read any Becky Chambers, so I will put this on my TBR card and see when I kind of feel the mood strike me to pick this up. So The Full Moon Coffee Shop by my Mochisuki. It was translated by Jessie Kirkwood in 2024. And this Full Moon Coffee Shop, so I've been in this phase of really seeking out, there's a huge flock of grackles, so a bunch of blackbirds that are just like flying out in front of the car. It's mesmerizing. Anyway, I am on sort of this kick of really enjoying these comfy, cozy bookshop fantasy books, and I think this is right down the alley. I've not heard of this one though. I have to show you this. Okay, so what makes this fantasy is I think that there are talking cats that try to help people get like wisdom for making decisions in their lives. It's like talking cats that are life coaches for the people who visit this cafe. And I just feel like this might be just a really kind of cozy read. And so I actually might read this pretty soon, especially considering we're expecting snow, and it just could just be a nice cozy read. It's not very long. It's under 230 pages, and so I could get through this pretty quickly and see if I enjoy it. Found The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. I've looked into either getting it in the library or purchasing. I can't remember if my library has it, but now I don't have to worry about reserving it and getting it back. I can just have this on my shelf, and when I feel like reading this, I can. So this has been on my like tracking TBR, like, oh, I should probably get a hold of that somehow and read it. So I think that there is maybe some magical realism. I don't think this is fantasy. I think it's more magical realism. There is a pretty heavy topic in here of one of our main characters, I think, coming back to town because her grandmother is terminally ill. So that's really sad. But for a debut novel, I think this has gotten pretty good reviews. And so I was excited to grab it. And again, you'll be seeing this on a TBR at some point in the future. And then I grabbed this. This is from 2021. This is the Holiday Swap. It is a book of the month book, which I seem to kind of be drawn to. Just the beauty of the hardcover and the symmetry of all of the books in the Book of the Month Club selections. This reminds me of the Candace Cameron Bure Hallmark Christmas movie where she's a twin and she swaps places. I think there's also the Vanessa Hudgens Christmas movie, Princess Switch, I think. So it's obviously a trope that's been done, but I think it's two twins who switch. One of them is running a bakery in like a mountain setting, and another one has a baking TV show. And so I think they switch places and find love. So again, the beauty of the Little Free Library. Would I buy this? I don't know. But will I just trade a book I'm not going to be reading anymore for a book that I might read in the future? Yeah, sure. And then I grabbed, this one is a season for second chances. This is set at a seaside house. And I can't tell if it's that she's renting it and the person who owns it wants to turn it into something different, but it's set at Christmas in the seaside with a wintry scene, so it looks perfect for a holiday romance, which is not my favorite genre, but probably the cover and the cat and it's like wintry. I don't know. It was the cover. I grabbed Emma Toll's The Lincoln Highway. I love A Gentleman in Moscow. I love the TV show adaptation. I love the book. I have not honestly heard very much about this. So my understanding of this is it is a story that spans 10 days. It is a story of a young man named Emmett who was in like juvenile detention, a work camp, because of making a really bad decision. And he gets dropped off, sort of like, okay, you're done with your detention time. You're on your own. I don't think he has much of a family. And when he starts out, he discovers that two of his detention work camp buddies have escaped as well. And so the three of them go on this 10-day jaunt to New York City. That's what I know. I don't know how good the reviews are for this. I don't know if it will hold up in my mind to Amor Toll's Gentleman in Moscow as far as my love for his writing style. So if you've read this, let me know what you think. So here we have my haul from one used bookstore, 2 Little Free Libraries, and a Barnes & Noble.
Thanks so much for watching. Until next time.